Sober on Purpose is the podcast that takes you beyond clean to fulfilling your dreams. Other programs get you sober. We ask what's next. Come thrive with us.
Hey, Jerry, we're doing another Sober on Purpose today.
This is my witty thing, right?
This is your witty thing?
Right.
That's the best thing you got.
What's that?
All right. So that's kind of weak today. We are here with Jessica Tripplet, who I've known for about 3 or 4 years now. She is the program manager at the Behavioral Health Administration State of Colorado, and she's the statewide trainer for the Community Reinforcement and Family Training Program, which is called CRAFFT. And the interesting thing about that is Jerry and I took this about 3 years ago. We were in a CRAFFT class, which is for loved ones who want to get the people that they see in their lives into some kind of treatment if there's an addiction happening or behavior, and you guys have more technical words for it. So
And your knitting and quilting improved quite a bit by the end of the course.
No.
What does CRAFT stand for?
I just told you, Community Reinforcement Family Training Program.
And it's got to be and family training.
And family training.
Okay.
And Jessica is going to tell us more about where it came from, but we have experienced it as people who were concerned about a loved one who was having a substance use disorder. That's the correct term, I believe, at this point. And then I was so empowered by it that I wanted to get trained by it. Jessica was my trainer. So for those of you who are worried about people with a substance use disorder or addiction is what we would have said in the past, this is the Sober on Purpose for you. So be sure and subscribe, because we're not only going to talk to Jessica, we may talk to her again. We've got another person coming up, and you don't want to miss this, especially as the holidays are coming on. So I know you're also a mommy, and she's got 2 lovely daughters as well. And tell us a little bit more about the 12 years you've spent learning this and the 5 years you've spent crafting this for the state. And the other amazing piece of this is this has an over 70% success rate. That's why you want to stick around. That's why you want to subscribe and know to the Sober on Purpose channel and know a lot more about Jessica.
Thank you, Tanya. And thank you both for having me. When I saw the request for a podcast, I got really excited. I wanted to redeem myself because I did a podcast a couple of years ago and it was awful. So no pressure. And selfishly, I'm hoping that I can redeem myself with this podcast. I know more about my position and what I'm doing, and I have a lot more experience in CRAFT. So anyway, thank you both for having me. So in 2010, I was fortunate enough to be trained in the Community Reinforcement and Family Training Program, otherwise known as CRAFT. And so I was working for the state of Colorado as a probation officer, not probation officer, but as under the umbrella of probation. So I was working with juveniles that were on probation and young or adolescent to 25-year-old males that were on probation. And so we would put a lot of time and effort into helping them, those that were struggling with substance use disorder. And there wasn't a lot of support for the family. And so once I was trained in this Community Reinforcement and Family Training Program and was working with the family members of those adolescents that were on probation and those young adult males on probation, I saw a program that really worked. It not only helped the family members support their loved one or caretakers support the person on probation to finish their probation program, to do their drug test and whatnot, but it also really helped the family member take care of themselves and have those boundaries regardless of what happened to the person that was on probation. So anyway, 2010, I was trained in that. And I had the opportunity to work with a lot of family members and caregivers of people that were involved in the criminal justice system that were struggling with substance use disorder. And it was in the training in 2010, when I was hearing some of the statistics that you shared, Tanya, I was thinking, where was this program when my family needed it? How could, hindsight's 2020, but where was this program when the people that I loved were struggling and I didn't have the resources or the skill set to help them? And that's exactly what CRAFT delivers, is those skill sets and also maintaining those boundaries that are so important for somebody that's loves somebody that's struggling with an addiction.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tell it, this comes from a very specific source, Dr. Robert Myers, and you have trained specifically with him. I mean, you know him personally. Tell us a little bit about how this came about in the beginning, how people.
Yeah. Great question. So there is a series of videos on HBO available. It's called the Addicted series. And in one of those videos, it features CRAFFT. And so Dr. Myers goes into why he developed CRAFFT, why it was so important for him. And when he was growing up, his father used alcohol. He had a really bad drinking problem. And his mom didn't know what to do. And she died at the age of 45 or 46. And he thought there has to be something that's available, not only for the person that's struggling with the addiction, but also the family members. And so he did a lot of research, and he looked at different 12-step models. And he also looked at, intervention models. And he really found in creating the CRAFFT model, a way to bridge the gap between the 12-step detachment, self-care piece, and then the intervention piece of giving an ultimatum and really trying to motivate a person to go to treatment. And I think that's what CRAFFT really encompasses. So giving people skills while still holding those boundaries.
And with a focus on the people who are existentially attached to the.
Absolutely.
What's the word? The preferred
identified.
Identified as substance
Use
disorder. Thank you.
But I like loved
The
ones
SUDS
better.
Oh, there you go.
Loved ones.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, perfect.
So who are the people who come to CRAFFT? How have you experienced that?
Yes. So a little bit about how we got here. So I was familiar with CRAFFT in 2010, and then an opportunity came up in 2018 to not just work with criminal justice involved individuals with substance use disorders, but to do a statewide approach using the state opioid response. It was called state targeted response dollars, but federal dollars to support the implementation of this program throughout Colorado. So in 2017, the state of Colorado applied to add the community reinforcement and family training, otherwise known as CRAFFT model, to implement it throughout the state of Colorado. And so I became a trainer in the CRAFFT model, and I can train people in how to facilitate CRAFFT and working towards helping folks. This is more of a little bit more loftier goal, but training people to help become supervisors and also trainers. And Tanya and you have had a couple sessions together. So anyway, so 2017 is where we started. It's opiate funding, but the person that is struggling with the substance use disorder, they don't have to have opiates as their drug of choice. So the people that are invited to these groups, these are free groups. The people that attend these groups are the family members, loved ones, natural supports of a person that's suffering with substance use disorder. So if my husband or if one of my friends was struggling with substance use disorder, this would be a really good group for me to go to and meet other people that are in very similar situations.
And it doesn't, in my experience, it can be anybody. It can be the grandparents, it can
Absolutely.
be brothers, sisters, friends, cousins, work community.
Yep.
And a lot of people come.
Absolutely.
They don't know what to do. So
how long have you been doing this for?
Yeah. So through the state of Colorado, I've been doing this for almost 5 years. And some really cool numbers I think it's important to share is when we first started implementing CRAFFT through these state opioid dollars, the first year was a big failure. We had a goal of serving, I think it was 400 families, and we ended up serving 23. Don't quote me on that, but it was very, very low in regards to what our original goal was. Fast forward to almost 5 years later, and now I think we've served over 2,000 individuals in this family model. So this is a model that has taken a while to really get some traction in Colorado, but more and more people reach out to see where CRAFFT groups are available in their area. I must say that with COVID, the silver lining of COVID is before COVID hit, if you didn't live in a geographic area where CRAFFT was available, you're just kind of out of luck. But now with being able to do a lot of internet and hybrid type groups, anyone can receive CRAFFT. You don't have to be in Colorado, you don't have to be in Denver. If there's a group in Denver, there are also some individuals that are doing CRAFFT that are in different states. So you don't actually have to be a resident of Colorado either to be able to receive this free family support and skills build.
So would that be done like by Zoom meeting or the equivalent? Yeah.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yep. So Google Meets, Zoom, whatever works for the agency or individual that's implementing the program.
And it is regulated by the state. It is a model that you have to have an agency to do it. This is not just a freewheeling, anybody can show up and do it type thing.
All
Yeah.
right.
To be,
I have control. I get to be normally I'm just here as a support mechanism, but woohoo!
You're doing great.
The
You're
sense of
doing great,
power
Jerry.
is just
Yeah.
terrific. Thank you. So you started training in this model and implementing it when you were 15 then? Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah,
No.
I was 15. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So Tanya brought up a little before she started coughing, how to be a facilitator. And so one of my roles is to help people facilitate CRAFFT. And something I want to say about CRAFFT too is it is a skills building class, a skills building group. So 10 to 12 sessions, you get the entire CRAFFT material. So CRAFFT runs about once a week. Some of the facilitators do it a little bit differently. Some of them will do 60-minute sessions, other will do 90-minute sessions, but CRAFFT is generally about 10 to 12 sessions, so about a 3-month program. And one of the biggest things that I think family members get from CRAFFT is positive communication skills. So they're learning new and positive ways to communicate the things that they enjoy about this person, the things that they would like to change. And by learning some of those communication skills, it really helps open up different opportunities, opens up different doors of support for them in their lives.
One of the things I gained from it was a support structure in the community as well, with
awesome
people who were who were dealing with similar issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really cool.
And we both come from a 12-step background. This AA Al-Anon Celebrate Recovery, this model is different because it has the 12 weeks and it isn't as you said earlier, just self-care and set boundaries model. Can you talk to us more about, I've been totally impressed on how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us the step, I hate to say step because that moves us 12 steps, but the process by which you move the loved one towards treatment?
Absolutely. So I like the question about what makes this different than 12-step, what makes this different than Al-Anon, because I think people are more generally aware of Al-Anon and those types of programs. The thing that really makes CRAFFT different is, yes, there's that self-care component, but the way that CRAFFT works is you reestablish that relationship with the person. CRAFFT really encompasses the saying that connection is the opposite of addiction. So by learning those communication skills and using that relationship, you don't have to bribe someone to go to treatment. You can use that relationship, that connection, to help encourage positive change. So what CRAFFT does is it really looks at instilling hope. It looks at there's a big empathy building piece where family members and friends put themselves in the other person's shoes. They learn about what they think the function is of this person's substance use behavior. Why are they participating in this really, really negative behavior? And by being able to put yourself in that person's shoes, you have more empathy for them and you can kind of understand where they're coming from, right? So a big piece of that is that empathy building piece. And then by teaching those communication skills and reestablishing that relationship, it breaks down a lot of those barriers that I think people struggle with when they love someone with a substance use disorder, or both people have substance use disorders, right? So what makes CRAFFT different is we look at ways that family members and friends may have unintentionally supported this person's substance use. So we're looking at ways that we accidentally helped them use. Was it giving them money? Was it allowing them to stay in our house? Was it actually giving them drugs and alcohol? Because we knew that if we gave them the drugs and alcohol, we see them, they're alive. This is, a part of this system that we've created. But the thing that makes CRAFFT different is we're positively reinforcing, we're finding things to help this person choose more positive behaviors. So if a person is drinking alcohol because they want to relieve stress, they want to kind of like numb themselves, they want to disconnect. When we understand the function of why they're using, we can now find something else that's positive that helps fill that same effect. So if it's stress relief, can we help them get into some sort of gym program if they're into fitness? Can we help them learn how to meditate? If they're seeking that social support, that's why they're drinking, because they want to be with others. What are some positive things that we can get them involved in that really fills that behavior, that function they're feeding. I'm not sure if the way I explained it made sense, but we're positively
No,
reinforcing
It makes
the
sense. It
times.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Inviting them to pickleball.
Yeah, baby.
I want to play
So-
pickleball.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've really had a good time. We're terrible at it. I mean,
Whoa, I'm good at it.
terrible
Okay.
at it. What I have found is the invitation process in it is I want to give you attention. We cannot go out and drink together if that's
Mhm.
whatever their usage is. But hey, we could go play pickleball together and that's a stress reliever, or we could go see a movie, or we could do this, because it's the communication that I want to be with you.
Yeah.
Even though you may still be doing some of this behavior.
Here are some alternatives how we can
Here's-
be together
Yeah.
without you using.
Yeah.
Well,
And
and then-
or using as much, right? And creating an
Right.
environment where they want to choose this thing. They want to choose pickleball
Yeah.
over drinking. Like that's how CRAFFT works. It's like a very gradual, subtle process. And so as they go through this process, they then like really work on reestablishing that relationship. And towards the end of the program, CRAFFT talks about natural consequences. So we talk to family members and friends about, what are some ways that we have unintentionally blocked or not allowed this person to experience their own natural consequences of their substance use. So it's, did we call the boss if they were hungover and make excuses for them? Did we pick them up, at 3 a.m? Did we make excuses for family members and friends? And CRAFFT really looks at some of the ways that we may have unintentionally helped this problem continue and ask family members and friends to no longer do that and let this person experience the natural consequences of their own behavior. They have to face their boss and say, you know what, I've been drinking a lot and I can't get up for work in the morning, or maybe they lose their job or whatever it is. Allowing the person with the substance use disorder to get a little bit uncomfortable and really look at themselves in the mirror and say, is this something that is working in my life? And so by allowing those natural consequences and by the family members saying, I love you, I care about you, and this is why I can no longer let this problem continue. I think that's where that connection piece comes in again, where they see that you're there for them, they see that you support them, and that they want this person to go to treatment, go to services, or get better. And so
Love and logic.
Well, let's flip the script. Why, in your experience, might people keep doing the behaviors, the loved ones keep doing the behaviors that help the person continue their use of whatever the substance is? Why do they do that?
Yep. Excellent question, Tanya. I think change is hard for people. I also think that the ultimate natural consequence is death. If we don't continue to do this, if we don't continue to help this person, or we don't want to make waves, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to our relationship? Is this person going to leave us? Is this person going to die? And so I think people are really afraid of that sort of change. The example I brought up about losing the person, calling in sick for the person losing their job, maybe that's not a good natural consequence for the family to face, because if the person does lose a job, are they out on the streets? They can't pay for rent, they can't pay for food if they lose their job. So CRAFFT works in a way where we meet the client where they're at, and if they're not comfortable allowing something to continue, or if they're not comfortable no longer helping in this situation, what is something else that we can allow the person with the substance use disorder to experience, where they're not overdosing, they're not losing their job, that we can find other natural consequences that they can experience that aren't so dramatic. And that's the thing I love about CRAFFT is we work alongside the family. We're not telling people what to do. We're asking them what they want and how can we help them get there.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, it's important to keep an eye on the reality that, addiction is progressive, right? So people are either getting worse or getting better, but they tend not to flatline and be considered, a substance use disorder individual. So if we continue to allow them, and if we continue to enable, odds are they're going to progress, right? In a worse way as far as the substance is concerned. So in my experience, there's only 3 ways out of a progressive illness like that. One is death, the other is incarceration, and the third is sobriety, right? So yeah, to bring to attention to the reality, like if I continue to enable, the odds are greater that they're going to end up incarcerated or dead anyway. So
Yep.
it's probably better to institute some or allow some natural consequences to take place before one of those two major natural consequences take place.
Absolutely.
Although it is really hard for the family to see that because they're so worried. What experiences have you had where the family, their eyes flew open and they went, oh, we are making this worse? Do you have examples?
Yes. Thinking back to my probation, I hate saying probation days, but thinking back to my criminal justice days, I worked with a lot of single moms that they were terrified to change anything because they didn't want it to affect their child's future. It didn't want to, they wanted them to be so successful. It's not white knuckling, but they wanted it more than the kid wanted it. And so by allowing things to happen, by allowing some of their children to continue to do some of these behaviors, nothing was going to change. And so I had a woman that I worked with, and she had twins, and they were both involved in the criminal justice system. And so by going through some of these natural consequences sessions with her, she was like, she had one of those moments where she was like, this last year has basically been my fault. If I would have known these things earlier, I don't know if we would have been here now. And the good thing was that she had received CRAFFT when she did, and she learned that what she was doing in the past absolutely did not work. So she started laying down more boundaries. She started communicating, using positive communication skills and saying, I love you and I care about you, and I can't allow you to continue to do this. All right, if this happens again, I'm going to call your probation officer because I'm not helping you if I let this continue. And I think it was really hard for her to do because she had nobody else supporting her. It was just her and her two sons that were both in trouble. So I would say that woman, she did experience that aha moment of, oh, I have really been unintentionally supporting this to continue. So
the takeaway here is the best time to start CRAFFT is 5 years ago, and
yes,
the second best time is right now.
Right now. Yep.
And
Absolutely.
Just for our listeners, subscribe because we will continue to have information on this. There are classes going on right now. They are free. They do happen on Zoom. They're available to you. You don't have to qualify. You don't have to, jump through any hoops. Show up. That's all that we ask you to do. And then there's steps in the process, because I think one of the biggest things is feeling hopeless and helpless, is you don't have anywhere to go. So talk to us about what the process actually looks like, so it's not so scary.
So the process of CRAFFT, or getting involved in CRAFFT, or
either way, wherever you want to.
Yeah. So I suggest that when people, go to craftcolorado.org. That is our new and improved website that will give you information on what CRAFFT is. So CRAFTCOLORADO.org. So if you go to this website, it'll tell you about the 4 main goals of CRAFFT, and will also give you a list of the different CRAFFT groups that are running throughout the state of Colorado. I think at this point in time, there's 32 different groups that are running throughout the state of Colorado. And my recommendation would be to find a group that is just starting, and really starting at the very beginning with the first session, where you learn about what can I expect from CRAFFT? What are the different things that I can work on? And I think folks, when they get to the CRAFFT class, they think the main thing I want to do is get this person into treatment. We know treatment doesn't work for everyone. They could go to treatment, they could drop out, they could relapse, all these other things could happen. The main thing that brings people to CRAFFT is that wish and that hope that this person will go to treatment. And that's one of the main goals. But there's 3 other goals of CRAFFT. So getting their loved one into treatment, or encouraging them to stay engaged, is a big piece of the program. Self-care for the family member or friend, regardless of what happens to the person with the substance use disorder, is another big goal of CRAFFT. There's the relationship piece. So really focusing on reestablishing those connections and improving the relationships. And the other piece that I haven't mentioned yet, but Tanya, you alluded to this earlier, is harm reduction. So CRAFFT is not an abstinence program. It is a program where we're looking at how can we encourage this person to use less, or can we learn different skills to help encourage this person to make more positive choices where they don't end up using as much. They go play pickleball, 3 times a week instead of once a week, and go to the bar less, or whatever the situation is. So CRAFFT works at the pace that works with a family member. Once we learn positive communication skills, we learn things that are rewarding for the person with a substance use disorder. The CRAFFT trainer can help you work through the rest of the program by strategically giving that person with the substance use disorder those rewards. So that pickleball, that connection. So towards the end of the program, when we ask them, I love you, I care about you, I think it would be great if our family went to treatment, they say, you know what, I knew this was coming, and I will go talk to somebody. I don't want to, but I will. And that's kind of how CRAFFT works. It's a very gradual process. The biggest takeaway that you can give folks at the beginning of the program, if they come in and say, I need skills now, positive communication skills. Start working on positively communicating the things that you want with this person. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
I think so.
Okay.
And it differs. So we've talked about the 12-step, but it absolutely differs from the surprise intervention model of get all the family members together, write the letters, pull everybody in a room, kind of what you see on TV. And then the person walks in supposedly totally unaware, and it's kind of like, wow, we're doing this to you.
Yeah, no, I really like the idea because, for somebody who is experienced with substance abuse, myself, who I'm referring to, when we say the disease, or call it what you will, is progressive, that brings up the idea that it's always getting worse, but that's not the reality, right? A lot of times people don't come into the sphere of recovery until they're really, really bad. But there are years and years earlier, the big book talks about this in the first chapters, where you're either getting worse or you're getting better. You're using more or using less. But there's this balancing act that's taking place in someone with that tendency. And usually it's not until that something has happened or the disease has progressed to a level where they're on this steady upward climb. And that's where we tend to associate it with progressive. But it can be getting better, it can be getting worse. And what I'm hearing you talk about is this idea of, well, let's try and get on the downward slope in the early stages and ride that. And then from a lower, there's less to fall into recovery, if you will. It's probably a horrible analogy to say fall into recovery, but the transition is less dramatic if you're on a downward slope and then you're like, you know what, I am ready to start working on this, as opposed to I don't have a job, I don't have a wife, I don't get to see my kids, I'm in jail and now I want to recover.
Well, and that's kind of the AA model is hit bottom, but what I term this as is we're raising the bottom.
Yeah.
We're saying, okay, let's connect and show you how good life can really be. So
and in AA, it talks about high bottom people too, right? Yeah. And that's great, right? Because again, the fall is horrible analogy, but there's less ground to cover when you're at a less profound place in your life, as far as the magnitude of bad things that are going on or natural consequences.
Well, and I think it also helps. What I've experienced in running these classes is it helps the loved ones not feel so hopeless and helpless. And it also, what I've experienced personally, helps them open their eyes to where they're on the spectrum, that they have some things that they turn to when they're in pain, whether it be food, whether it be over exercise, whether it be overwork, whatever it is. They're not immune to the same behaviors that their substance use disorder person is doing. They are doing them. They may just be doing them differently. And that's, for me, in my classes, that's when the eyes have flown open and they're like, oh, I can relate. And that's a big part of CRAFFT is, how do you relate to this person rather than wagging your finger at them? How do you relate? How are you doing the same things?
Absolutely. Yep.
And so as you're expanding this, I am just delighted that it's not what we've experienced in 12-step programs is you're here till you die. You're in the 12-step program till you die, and you need to keep coming back, and you're never going to be well, and it's never going to be okay. You need to be here all the time. Some of that we practice some of those principles. This is a Christian podcast, so we believe in prayer and meditation and all those types of things, and we're going to keep with that higher power. But this has a beginning and an end.
Yes. Yep. It has a first session. It has a last session. And we encourage people that if they feel like they've missed something, or if they feel like they want to come back to CRAFFT, they can. And there's a lot of folks that do come back to CRAFFT. Maybe the first time they missed their loved one. Maybe they missed something the first time, or they really got something out of that group experience. Some people will stick around for a while, but you're right. There is a beginning and there's an end, and you get the same support, you get the same steps. It's the same curriculum, each 12-week cycle. So, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, but at the end, you probably have some people who you went through class with that you can call on, and you've also got a bunch more tools than when you entered. So it may never end, but you just are reminded that now I've got to go back to my tool bag that I just assembled in the last 12 weeks of CRAFFT. You know?
It has some really great thinking tools and some really positive things that I don't see as strongly in some of the other programs. Tell us about the self-care. If self-care is truly the answer, tell us some more about that and how CRAFFT sets that up.
Yeah, so CRAFFT, I always tell the facilitators that are doing CRAFFT, we're going to be working with a lot of people that have given so much to others that they have nothing left. There's nothing left for them at the end of the day. So I encourage a lot of facilitators, start working on the self-care piece at the beginning of the program. Talk about, there's a survey that participants fill out where they determine how happy or unhappy they are in certain parts of their life. Go through that survey with them. Talk to them about what are some goals, realistic goals they would want to set for themselves, because they are important. It's hard to motivate someone else to change and do positive things if we can't do it for ourselves. So CRAFFT really looks at what are the things that I can do for my own life. Every CRAFFT session, facilitators will assign homework, and the default homework assignment is always self-care. So let's say we worked on communication skills until we're blue in the face. We get to the very end of the session and say, okay, what is a communication skill we're going to work on this week? If someone says, you know what, I just can't do this week, that's fine. You know, what is something you can do for yourself? If you don't want to work on being brief with whoever it is, tell me one thing that you can do between now and next week to take care of yourself. And I think that's like really encompasses that self-care piece of CRAFFT. And I don't want to get too much into the statistics, but there are some studies that have shown that regardless of whether or not the identified patient or identified person agreed to go to treatment, family members reported a decrease in their levels of anger after they went through CRAFFT, their levels of anxiety after they went through CRAFFT, and their levels of depression after they went through CRAFFT. And that's people whose loved ones agreed to go to treatment. That's people whose loved ones said, I'm not going to go to treatment. So I think that really speaks to that taking time for yourself piece.
The more I work on myself, the better everyone else becomes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and let's debunk this mythology of self-care. So I've been looking, we have this, oh, I need a massage, or, oh, I need a pedicure, or I need to take a long vacation, or that type of thing. That's not what we're talking about.
Right.
That's very confusing when we get to self-care. We're talking about, do you need to step away and take 5 minutes and breathe deeply? Do you need to go for a walk?
Yeah.
Do you need to say, hey, I need a timeout. I can't discuss this right now. I'm going to go someplace else. Do you need to take a long bath? Do you need to go lift weights? This is not massive money, put it in there, because we know in these situations, often finances are stressed because a lot of money is flying out the door for either treatment or substance use disorder or those types of things. So the self-care is more about, I always look at it as, I know you've been totally focused on this other person. Let's turn the camera back on you. What is it that you need? Think about yourself for a minute. And these folks who have been caregiving for a long time, because that's really what it is, have forgotten that they exist.
Mm-hmm. Like basic needs. It's like almost very basic needs, not pampering, not getting your hair cut, like those are all great. But like you said, not everybody has access to those types of resources. And like, yes, I need a 1 hour break. I'm fried. Okay, I'll watch the kids. You go do whatever you want for an hour. You don't have to be back. Everything, those little teeny things.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I've been courageous. I've determined that CRAFFT is right for me. I've signed up for a program that's starting in my area, and I managed to, build the strength to walk through the threshold on day one. What can I?
On Zoom. We're very
Oh,
much on
yep.
Zoom.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. What can I expect?
You can expect a facilitator, I hope, that is warm and friendly. You can expect other people that are in very similar situations as yourself. You can expect to learn about how CRAFFT is going to work, and that you, as the family member or friend, you're the expert, and we're asking you these questions so we can help you move through the program. And you can expect empowerment, because you love this person, you care about them. That's why you're here, and you do have the power to help that person make better choices, but you also have the power to take care of yourself at the same time. So you can expect a warm environment, accepting environment, and you can expect that you're going to learn some concrete skills when you walk away of how to practice this in real life.
Can we go over some of those skills?
So one of the things she just said, and I want to reiterate that you are the expert.
Right. That's cool.
That's a different kind of model from
absolutely.
showing up at an interventionist or a therapist or something like that. And that's what we've experienced in raising our kids is we're not turning over we are asking for help, and we're asking for people to give us some ideas, but we are the experts on our children. We are the experts on ourselves. And so if it doesn't sit well with us, we need to speak up and say, hey, that doesn't work for my family. That's not the right place for us to be, which is totally a turn on a lot of models. Do you want her to go through the positive communication? That's probably one of the
I want to talk about some of the tools that are going to be given and some of the techniques and more concrete, what's the process look like? What am I going to be learning? What are we going to be talking about?
Yes. So one thing before I get into that, Tanya, you mentioned the expert on this person's life. Another thing before I give you concrete tools is I just had it.
We got an editor. You're good.
Okay. It was really good. It was like super good.
Go back to where you lost it. It'll be right there.
A lot of folks find CRAFFT and they say they're here because they want to get their loved one sober. They say they're here because they want to get this person into treatment. But that's what they want for this other person. What does that mean for them? So really digging deep with a family member and friend and understanding if they go to treatment, what does that mean for you? How do you benefit from that? Because you're the one that's here. They're not here. You're here. Does it mean you sleep better at night? Does it mean that you aren't worried and anxious? Does it mean that, what are those benefits that you would experience if that person went to treatment? And I think the very first session, you talk about some of those things. You really talk about like, what does this mean for me if this person goes to treatment? So now to shift gears a little bit, if somebody is, they find this podcast, they're like, okay, she's talking about how great it is, but like, give me concrete skills. So if you learn anything throughout this process, there are 7 different communication skills that you can learn, that you can use with your loved one that's struggling with substance use disorder. And these 7 are so powerful. You don't have to be fluent in all 7. 1 or 2 can make a lot of changes with your loved one, even not the person that's struggling with the substance use disorder. Can I share my screen?
Yes,
of course.
please.
Okay.
Yes,
Because I was gonna say I already have this on my screen. So
Sure.
okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
There you go.
Woo!
So I'm doing a training cohort right
Look at
now.
number 1, Tanya. How important is that? Wow.
Was that a jab, Jim?
No, I'm being positive. What are you talking about?
All right, let Jessica do her thing.
It's all good. So here are the 7 different communication skills that are going to be presented in CRAFFT. And again, like I said, you don't have to be fluent in all 7. If you can learn 1 or 2, they can take you a really, really long way throughout the program. But the first skill that you can work on, number 1, is being brief. So 5 words or less, 7 words or less. If this person hears you say, if you're going off on a whole diatribe or a conversation about you're late, I never did this when I was your age, how can you keep me worried, blah, blah, blah. You could say, I'm glad you're home. Let's talk about this tomorrow. That sounds way different than talking about, I never did this when I was your age, blah, blah, blah. So being brief, if they listen to 5 words, what are those 5 words that they hear? Second communication skill that we teach family members is to be positive. So say what you want to see in this person's behavior. Instead of saying, I'm not going to yell at my kids anymore. What are you going to do? What are you going to replace that with? I will talk to my kids in a calm voice. I will express my needs in a positive way. So being brief, 5 words or less, being positive, saying what you want to see in that other person. Number 3 is referring to specific behaviors. So when we refer to specific behaviors, this person knows exactly what to expect. You can measure it. Instead of saying, I'd really appreciate it if you would clean the house every once in a while, you can say, tonight, could you please put the dishes away? Or tonight, I'll clean the floor while you load the dishwasher. Not a lot of room for misinterpreting expectations. And when we use specific behaviors, we're also working towards that destigmatization piece. We're working towards separating the person from their addiction. You are so lazy. You always sit on, could you please help me by putting the dishes away? Way different than you're so lazy. Can't you help me out every once in a while? So being brief, being positive, referring to specific behaviors. Number 4, labeling your feelings. I feel. So we're taking ownership over our own feelings. And when we say, I feel sad, I feel frustrated, I feel overwhelmed, unless the other person's a sociopath, they know what it's like to feel sad, what it's like to feel overwhelmed, what it's like to feel isolated. And there's that connection, that empathy piece of the other person being able to identify with those emotions. Being brief, being positive, referring to specific behaviors, labeling your feelings, offering an understanding statement is number 5. So what's really important about this communication skill is by using this understanding statement, we're coming to this person from their perspective. I can see that I see that you're struggling because you cut off all your using friends. Do you want to go to the gym tonight with, or it must be difficult to have nobody to talk to. Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to go get some coffee?
Pickleball.
Pickleball. You guys must play a lot of pickleball.
Not enough.
So and all of these skills are designed to disarm the other person. There's so much defensiveness in relationships, especially relationships that one or both people have a substance use disorder. So anyway, to do another summary. So being brief, being positive, referring to the specific behaviors, labeling your feelings, offering an understanding statement, accepting partial responsibility. We don't expect family members and friends to take full responsibility for someone else's addiction, but this can be really powerful if we say, you know what, in the past, I know I've allowed this situation to continue because I made excuses for your family, but I can no longer do that because I really want things to change. So by accepting partial responsibility, we share how we fit into the problem and also how we're not going to allow it to continue.
Maybe I wasn't very clear when I asked you for X, X, and X, or maybe I assumed this was something that you would do those types of things, to take that back to yourself and say, hey, how do we talk through this so we come to something that works?
I had somebody in my life who would say to me, I need to apologize to you, right? And that would always get my attention. Right?
I need to apologize to you. I've done it with
I feel that I wasn't clear enough when I outlined what I expect.
Yeah.
Right?
And that changed I said it to our boy. I said, I really need to apologize to you. I'm really jealous that money just seems to fly into your hands. It is difficult for me to see this happen. I want you to have abundance. I'm not real comfortable with how you're using it.
That was a really good way of communicating. What are you doing with your money? That is not a very smart thing to do.
Exactly. And I'm saying, I'm taking it back on me, saying, I'm jealous that this happens for you. And how can I help you do this in a way that helps you rather than creates an issue for your father and I because you've just junked yourself out on sugar?
Yep, absolutely. And then the last skill that's listed here is to offer to help. So if all else fails, sometimes just hearing, I see that things are really frustrating right now. Is there anything I could do to help you? Just know that I'm here to help in any way possible. and maybe the other person doesn't know what they need for help, but just hearing that this person is there to support them.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the things I
connection.
like is, is there any way that you can think of that I could help you to achieve this? And look, if you don't know what that is right now, totally understandable.
Yeah.
Just know that if and when it comes to you, I'm here to help.
Yep, definitely. And just looking at this list right here, every single time I do this training, I've done it, I don't even know how many times. I look at this list and I'm like, man, I really need to work on this one. Or this is one that I've really been struggling with lately. And like, I know with my partner, if I accept partial responsibility, he will listen to anything I have to say. So for you, Jerry, it's apologizing. I need to apologize. You're like, ooh, what? For him, it's like, I really could have done a better job of blah, 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 because then you would have known I was upset. And when he hears that, he's like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, and then we can actually have a conversation. So these are the concrete communication skills that family members will learn, and that helps establish that connection.
Not all of them, but for the most part, they're disarming, right? You be brief, you kind of take away the ability for me to build a big resentment as you're going through your whole list, right? You be positive, again, disarming things, right? That's the whole idea behind it. Look, there has to be an element of truth if you're going to come to somebody and say, I need to apologize to you. It can't be completely just made up and contentious, but they're all disarming, right? They're meant to de-escalate.
There's one that's not on the list that I really like is, you're right, I did not do this well. Let me start again.
Like a do-over.
When you say you're right, that gets the person's attention, especially males, I've noticed. When you say you're right to them, it's saying, hey, I missed something in the conversation, or I'd like to start this again, or I did talk over the top of you, and that's not the person I want to be. You're right. I need to slow down and pause, and like you said, do a do-over.
Yeah. Or even ask,
let me try this again.
Can you give me the chance, another chance
grace
at this? Yeah.
Because I
offer me
screwed
some
it up.
grace, because I'm human. I screw up too, and I'd like to try this again. Is that cool with you? And again, you're de-escalating everything, and you're kind of giving them some power where somebody with substance abuse is in a situation consistently where they don't have a lot of power. The substance is going to determine what they do next, right? I remember mornings waking up and going, do I have enough to get through the day? Because if not, that's my whole priority list right now, right? I don't have control in that. We're powerless through the majority of our illness.
Well, and the other thing this program doesn't do is pile on guilt. And I can tell you from my own issues that I already know I'm guilty. I already know I'm doing something that I not the person I want to be. You adding more guilt to that just makes me want to dig a hole and hide and use more rather than coming out. Whereas if you said an understanding statement or took partial responsibility or said, I can see that you're overwhelmed because you're eating cookies out of the cabinet that you don't normally do. How can I help?
We have cookies in the cabinet?
We don't have any cookies in the cabinet because I can't handle it. It's not something. Look,
transition.
Yes, please.
Yes, I wanted to share the website. So it's craftcolorado.org. It says a different one up here, but if you type in craftcolorado.org, this is what will come up. We've started a new campaign focused on family members and loved ones. And within the next couple of weeks, different videos are going to be presented with CRAFFT participants, with CRAFFT facilitators. And so this is our community reinforcement and family training webpage, where you can learn about what CRAFFT is. You can learn about the different goals. You can read about other people's CRAFFT experiences. And then if you click on this link right here, it will bring up the different CRAFFT groups in the state of Colorado. So it'll give you the facilitator's name and how to contact them. And this is how you would go about finding a CRAFFT group, is you click on find a CRAFFT group near me. And this is how you would find CRAFFT in your area. It doesn't have to be in your area, but if there's a day of the week that works best for you, if there's a certain time that works best for you, all of this information is on this website, and it is updated weekly, because we know that a lot of things change. And
you have Spanish classes, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we have 6 groups that are in Spanish that are offered once a week. So
Magnifico.
Yeah, because one of the things we know is when people get stressed out, they return to home language. And so they need to be able to work through this in home language too. And,
Yes.
and as we said earlier, you don't need the qualifier like you would need in a 12-step group. If you are in any way associated, and when we talk about it for 12-step, for every substance use disorder, there's at least 5 people. These rooms should be packed. There are at least 5 people who are affected. And we talked about this in suicide prevention. What if you have a young person? What if you have a teenager? What if you have somebody who is worried about their parent? Can they join the group?
So with teenagers, there's one group in, I want to say it's Edwards, Colorado, where they will work with adolescents. The one thing that we ask is that if we have an adolescent that does the CRAFFT group, they bring a trusted adult with them. So we're not putting so much pressure on them to be able to and further parentify them, but bring a support person that can be there for them as they go through the CRAFFT process.
But it doesn't have to be the parent, the grandparent,
No,
or somebody else.
No,
it could be somebody from a church community, a school community, something like that, so that they can work through this process. And I can't tell you how helpful this was for us when we went through it together, because we were supporting a loved one and it got us on the same page. So that's a real positive, because family members can be conflicted about how they want to support.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's what I thought. But they can be conflicted on how they want to support. And also I've worked with some groups where grandma wants to support, but parents are not quite on the same page, and aunt and uncle are over here. And when they come together, then they have a process they can get behind that is non-threatening. I think that's one of the biggest things. So,
and if grandma's there by herself, find people to come with grandma to the group. Absolutely. Because usually those are the people that will never give up no matter what. And they're married to somebody that's like, nope, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore. You can do that, but I'm not going to do this. Find people that can come with her and support her.
Absolutely. And you can, I've also run 1-person groups. So you can come by yourself. If that's what's happening for you, you can come by yourself. In the CRAFFT process, we try and help you create community of where you can go and work simultaneously with other people, as Jerry said, but it doesn't have to be that way. So if you are desperate, just show up.
In the big book, it says, when 2 or more are gathered, they may call themselves a group.
Yeah. So that would be 2 of you. So Jessica, is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything we've missed in running this?
I don't think so. Just the new website, craftcolorado.org. That's where you can find all the information about CRAFFT websites near you, or CRAFFT groups near you. As the next couple of weeks roll out, there's going to be videos on there so you can watch people talking about their CRAFFT experience. It's an anonymous, it's a confidential group. So as you go through CRAFFT, what is said in group stays in group. And just that I hope that more people can find this really valuable resource as it continues to grow in Colorado.
And again, we want to reiterate, this is free. You can find it on Zoom. It's 12 weeks. So it isn't, you certainly can come back, but 12 weeks will get you through a lot of the process. And I know when I teach it, I get better at home. So it's always fascinating to see that happen. And it's concrete. It isn't pie in the sky. It doesn't expect crazy results, nor is it a surprise to sometimes the substance use person says, really, you're going to go through all that trouble for me? And they feel loved and cared about just because you're in the group. I've seen that happen too.
Yeah. And just by going, you're demonstrating, you're bringing into the world this example that I'm willing to do something to help you, right? Just by going, it's an extension into the universe that I'm here to help the addict or the person who's struggling, right? Because I'm doing this for me, but I'm making a step in the right direction. I'm going to get tools. I'm going to get support. And hopefully this person benefits from it as well.
Well, and tell your success rate numbers. I don't think we've talked about that.
The 7 out of 10 people, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
So research has shown that 7 out of 10 folks that go through CRAFFT are successfully getting their loved one to engage into treatment. So really getting their foot in the door. The person that they love makes that intake phone call, goes to their appointment. So there is a pretty high success rate, especially when we compare it to intervention, Johnson Institute type models and Al-Anon models, the success rate of the person going to treatment is very high.
And did you hear what you said? The person with the substance use disorder is making the phone call rather than the interventionist model of we're forcing you to do this or else. And what we know about forced models is they don't have a great success rate afterward.
Absolutely. Yep, they don't.
It's a real struggle.
Just I was gonna say, I thought of one thing I forgot. Because this is federal opioid dollars, a big piece of work we're doing right now is harm reduction. And by doing this harm reduction, we are educating CRAFFT facilitators and how to do a train the trainer, or how to train family members and friends in naloxone. So naloxone is an opioid overdose reversal medication. So CRAFFT facilitators can teach family members the signs of opiate use, opiate overdose, where to find naloxone and how to administer it. And even if the person in the group, their loved one, is not using opiates, it's a good idea to have it to have it in your cabinets or have it in your car or whatever, because you never know what can happen. And so anyway, we're expanding our naloxone distribution and making sure that family members can get naloxone if they want it. So,
and it's a nasal spray.
Yeah, Narcan nasal spray is the brand that the state opioid response, the funding is paying for. So,
and administered quickly after any kind of overdose, it saves lives.
Yep. And if the person isn't having an overdose and they're having a heart attack, it won't harm the person. I could take naloxone right now; it will do nothing for me. It's very gentle. There's a lot of myths that exist around naloxone and that kind of harm reduction, but it saves lives and we can help people if they're alive.
Does it work with fentanyl?
No. Yes, it does. Yep. It does. There were a lot of myths around if it does work with fentanyl, and it does. Yep. But you have to call 911. Medical people need to come and help and get that person to the hospital because they can go back. They'll go back into overdose.
Right.
But it absolutely can help with a fentanyl overdose.
Neat.
So it's kind of like knowing CPR. Of you can stim it, but you can't. They still need medical attention after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
because it's going to wear off, and then
or more like an EpiPen. It stops the reaction, but you still need medical attention after it's happening. And that's available for free, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. In these CRAFFT groups, you can get it for free. If you have Medicaid, I think it's $1. Private insurance is like $40 or $60 for it. But through the SOR, state opioid response dollars, it's free.
Yeah. And it truly has saved a lot of lives.
Yep.
Jessica, it's wonderful to see you.
You too.
thanks for doing this.
And we really appreciate it. And I'm going to run a CRAFFT group in January. So subscribe. I will put some more out there on that. Reach out to me at hello@tanyajoya.com. And I can certainly put you in touch with other people who are doing programs right now. We'll put the website out there and make sure that you've got all your information to participate, because this really is, we've been in program for 10 years now. No.
Yeah. Since I was 10.
Yeah. Since you were 10. We've been in 12-step programs, and we're not knocking those. Those are wonderful programs too, but this is another tool to put in your toolkit. So Jessica, thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Hi, Sober on Purpose family. Please be sure and subscribe. We have a ton more videos. We have courses coming up. We have a newsletter that comes out weekly. Plus there is a podcast as well. And for those who are brave enough to really decide they want to move into the future, they want to move into their future self and leave behind the hurts, habits, and hangups that they have struggled with over the last year, I work with extraordinary women who are ready to step in, open their hearts, and find the true self that they can share with their family, their community, and the world. Because it's only when one person changes that the whole world changes. Are you ready to jump into that kind of adventure? Click the links in the show notes and let me know. Let's talk and see if we're the right fit. Again, remember to subscribe. Videos, courses, podcasts.